Villains, gangsters, or faces as they prefer to be called, are the people that have been making newspaper headlines for all the wrong reasons over the past 50 years.
You play, you get hurt. Simple.
Some are instantly recognisable, but many are not.
If you have the name done, that's it, you're finished.
In this second series, some of those involved in the Underworld's most infamous crimes have agreed to go on camera to tell how things happened and why.
I'm an old man now, but I can shoot and stab as well as anybody else.
My name is Bernard O'Mahony. I was a friend of the Kray twins and a key member of the Essex Boys firm.
And everyone seems to think that I had something to do with the actual killings of them when they actually got killed in the Range Rover. And this was something that Damon tried to impress. He wanted to be like that.
I know this world, I know these faces, and I am going to take you on a journey into the heart of the Underworld.
I'm shackled to a chair, battered, guns out of my head constantly. Just 3 days of non-stop beatings and torture.
But he's not dead now.
He's not dead. He's not dead. Yet.
This guy always finishes on top.
Whilst the majority of the British public basked in the glory of the British Empire, Birmingham, one of the great cities of the Industrial Revolution, became a breeding ground for violent gangs, the likes of which we have never seen before.
They were the product of overcrowded slums and tenements, where life was cheap and many died in infancy. The only way to survive was to band together. The most infamous group to emerge was the Peaky Blinders. They were responsible for a crime wave that often left the police powerless. Their bloody reign mirrors modern-day Birmingham, where postcode gangs execute rivals simply because they reside in a different street. Villains in the Midlands, it would seem, have always been extremely ruthless. Albert Chapman ran the Elbow Rooms nightclub in Aston, which for 3 decades played host to a number of both celebrities and prominent members of the Underworld.
I started working the doors. First place called the Plaza Handsworth, and then I went to the Rum Runner Club. And at the time, there was only probably four clubs in Birmingham, really. And people who used the clubs were just a certain elements of people. Characters is the best way to describe them. The Elbow Room was a people's club, and people came there because they knew there was never any problems. I never stood for any nonsense, and I mean no nonsense at all. People out of order, it was dealt with immediately. And everyone knew, without a shadow of a doubt, they didn't perform in the Elbow Room. You play, you get hurt. Simple.
Albert's no-nonsense approach ensured the venue was always packed with celebrities, footballers, and the hierarchy of Britain's underworld.
A certain elements of people that were either fucking villains, musicians, or sports stars. I mean, George Best, it's in his autobiography. When he used to come down to Birmingham, I mean, and he was playing for Manchester United, he'd come down to Birmingham to get out the fucking way because he didn't get bothered in Birmingham like he would in Manchester. On a Friday night, he'd be in the Rum Runner or the Elbow, pissed up, drive back to Manchester in his E-Type and fucking play like a good one on Saturday. Steve Winwood, that was his very first gig, was the Elbow Room, when he was 13 years of age. There was the guys from Sabbath, Black Sabbath, ELO, Fred Foreman used to come down to the club. Tony Lambriano used to come down to the club. Charlie Kray was at the club all the time. Of course, Patsy Manning was always at the club. Patsy, I've known since I was about 15, 16, I suppose, something like that. He's one of life's characters.
Well, I was with a girl and she wanted to go down to her house in North London. So I'm standing there under the bridge, waiting for her to come back. And all of a sudden I thought to myself, like I could be having my hair cut. So there was a guy standing there by this little hut. And I went over to him and said, "Excuse me, mate. I wonder where you could tell me where there's a decent barbers around here." "Yeah, certainly." Showed me where the barbers were. I've gone back to where I'm waiting for the girl to come. And the girl turned around and said, "My God, I didn't know you knew the Kray twins. That's Reggie Kray. That's how I come to meet him."
He went away for one time and he got 7 years for attempted murder, and he hit someone with a claw hammer. So when he came out, I threw a party for him, and I had a cake made with a claw hammer on the top.
I can remember going to Albert's place when I came out of prison. He put a big party on for me, and we went in the top room where we always go, all the faces. And I sat there, and it never cost me a penny all night long. Everybody that was anybody would go there. I saw Charlie in there.
Albert Chapman introduced a friend of his to Patsy Manning. Handsworth-born Don Tia had links with the city's underworld, working as a debt collector around Birmingham's famous jewellery quarter. As Charlie Kray's visits to the elbow rooms became more frequent, Don was hired as his chauffeur.
Patsy Manning had his 60th birthday at the elbow room. We'd invited Charlie Kray up for his birthday. Charlie was stopping at the Albany, and I got the job to collect Charlie and pick up Patsy and take him to the elbow room. Good party and everything. That was my first meeting with Charlie Kray. And over the years, I had a few more meetings with him. And whenever he came to Birmingham, I was his driver, dropped him wherever he had to go, whatever meeting he had to be at, I got him there.
When the Kray twins had been imprisoned, their elder brother Charlie was forced to survive on handouts from friends and those desperate to be associated with the Kray name. Knowing Charlie would say yes to almost anything so long as free drinks flowed, a man known as Indian Joe had, for whatever reason, told the police that Charlie Kray could supply cocaine. During one of Charlie's visits to Birmingham, Indian Joe introduced him to an undercover policeman who was posing as a chauffeur.
Charlie rang me, I think it was on the Thursday. He said, "I'm up tomorrow. Can you pick me up?" I said, "Yeah, not a problem." He said, "All right, 8 o'clock, the Holiday Inn." I turned up at the Holiday Inn. I had a pal with me. Got to the bar, looked across. I could see the company that Charlie was in. Somebody in the company that I didn't really check for. Got our drinks. Said to my pal, says, "When we get the drinks, walk straight past and sit over there." So we went and sat away from him. In the end, Charlie's come over. He says, "Why aren't you joining the company?" I said, "Well, Charlie," I said, "I didn't know if he was in a meeting or not." I said, "There's somebody in the company I don't really rate." And he said, "Who's that?" And I told him. He said, "Okay." He said, "But," he says, "Joe's got a chauffeur." He says, "He's got a new Jag." He says, "So we're going out with them tonight." When we're coming out, I decided to leave my car there. And I jumped in the Jag with everybody else, but I jumped in the front. And straight away, I said to the driver, I said, "So you're the chauffeur, are you?" And he never answered me. The next thing, Joe in the back of the car, he says, "Don't be questioning up my driver." And I said, "Joe, I'm not questioning up your driver." I said, "I got an interesting chauffeur and I'm talking to the man." There was 7 of us in this Jag at the end of the night because we picked up somebody else along the way. So Charlie was actually sat on my knee in the front of the Jag, and there was 4 other lads in the back. When we get to the Holiday Inn, Charlie's gone to me, he says, "So I'll see you Tuesday." And I don't think he got the Tuesday out because I've dug him in the ribs. Gets out the car now, as we're walking into the hotel, I've put my arm around. I said, "Charlie, please don't let people know that I'm coming to meet you Tuesday, because I don't work like that. I don't let people know what I'm doing." Tuesday morning comes now, switch the telly on, and it come on the morning news. Charlie Kray's been arrested.
Over a 3-month period, the undercover policeman had plied Kray with drinks, gifts and cash. He wormed his way into Kray's fantasy-filled life by begging him to reveal more about his activities. Charlie boasted about the tons of cocaine and other drugs that he claimed to have at his disposal. The police didn't care whether Charlie could actually supply the drugs or not. So long as he was offering to do so, he was guilty of conspiracy to supply.
And I went to look for Patsy Manning. to find out what had gone on. And Patsy tells me that he was in his flat one Saturday afternoon. He got a phone call from these lads who he thought were villains. And they said they were down for the football. Could they pop round and see him? He said, yeah. They'd been to his flat before. They knew he didn't have a stereo. They brought him a stereo. They give him 20 fags with a £50 note stuffed inside it. Palling up Patsy. Patsy couldn't see that they were all built. And I just went, oh my God.
Charlie was just a friend with everyone. He was a charmer, a real charming man, and a nice man to be with. He respected everyone, he respected all the staff, being a waiter, a glass collector, bar staff. His manners were impeccable. And he got a bit of pride and a bit of dignity about him.
When Charlie Kray appeared in court, he was wearing a £10 watch and had holes in both shoes. Despite his impoverished appearance, Charlie Kray was convicted of conspiracy to supply £78 million worth of cocaine and sentenced to a total of 12 years imprisonment.
Dirty bastards. With what they are well done to him. It makes you sick. He was always... Charlie was always out for like the right opportunities, I should imagine, so it's easy to say. If an opportunity arose. But Charlie wasn't a villain like Swins. Charlie knew everyone, or knew everyone who could get anything. If anybody wanted anything, he'd say, yes, I can get you that, without a doubt. And that was his downfall.
Listening to Charlie Kray's friends, one could be forgiven for believing that he had never done anything wrong in his life. I knew the Kray brothers for a number of years, and I would describe Charlie as a Del Boy character rather than a hardened criminal. He would buy and sell stolen goods, one of his customers being notorious villain Freddie Foreman.
The first time I came in touch with the Kray brothers, with Charlie Kray, and we worked together, and he used to come over and he'd look at all the garages full up with stuff, and he'd say, I'll take it all, Fred, I'll take it a lot. And he used to come over with his van and make several trips and take it and pay on cash. So that saved me hawking it around to different people, you know, to sell personal bits and pieces. So he used to take the whole lot. And then he used to talk to me about the twins and his two brothers, you know, and they was young because they was like that much younger than me, 5 years or so younger. So, and he used to tell me the trouble and the problems they used to get into and where they was performing, and you know there was a worry to their mother and all the rest of it, and there was a worry to him as well. You know, Charlie. I mean, they give him a hard life and hard time.
Being in prison for 12 years at the age of 70 ensured Charlie Kray knew all about hard time.
When he was in the jail, I used to go and visit him every weekend, and then he was in Long Lartin. They transferred him to Frankland in Durham. And the dirty bastards made him wear a paper overall. This is a 70-year-old man in the back of one of them prison vans to take him to Frankland, freezing fucking cold. And they took him, and on the way there, they went to, stopped at Leicester, so they could have some lunch, or the screws could have some lunch, whatever. I stopped there on the way, and then took him to Frankland. And then we used to go and see him there, and he wasn't well, and his health started to deteriorate. And then they shipped him then to Parkhurst. He got pneumonia, became ill. And when he was there, his legs were swelling, and they used to have to bring him on a meet, under visiting, bring him in a wheelchair eventually. And it was disgusting. And then he was transferred then to the hospital on the island, and we used to go and visit him there. And even on the visits, he was chained to the bed. And in fairness, the screws were nice guys, and they were really very respectful towards Charlie. Them bastards set him up, and took it all away from him, and then he just deteriorated in there, and it was totally wrong. It's totally wrong. It should never have happened. And then them dirty bastards will get a feather in the cap, and that poor man's gone to his grave.
on the streets of Birmingham.
The residents of Birmingham are taught about the 3 R's from an early age. Respect, revenue and revenge are the 3 causes of a gang war that has been waged in the city for decades. The Burger Bar boys from Handsworth and the Johnson crew from Aston control the drugs trade in their neighbourhoods. The first fatality of the gang war was Corrie Allen, who was shot dead. The police alleged Burger boy Mika Youngsman had carried out the killing, but witnesses were too scared to testify. Youngson was later accused of attempting to murder fellow gang members Sharif Cousins. Bizarrely, mid-trial, Cousins claimed to have suffered a bout of amnesia and Youngson walked free once more.
A situation happened in our city centre where obviously a man pulled a gun on me. Obviously, I've disarmed the weapon off the man. A shot's gone off in the process. And that was it. I've gone in there, I've set the record straight. It says, I don't know nothing about no attempted murder. As far as I'm aware, no attempted murders never took place. There's never been no attempt on my life.
Did you get in prison for not giving evidence?
Yeah, I got in prison, yeah, because, you know, but the truth of the situation, it's not even like I lied about it, because obviously, man, I'm from the street, so man ain't gonna, you know, do that anyway, because obviously, yeah, if you got a problem with a man, we ain't gonna go to the police and tell the police. Obviously, you're gonna just deal with it how we deal with it out here, you understand it? So it was never a thing like that anyway, but they still tried to force me into court to give evidence for some trial what I don't know nothing about. Do you understand what I'm saying? So obviously, I've just told them what happened. I got locked up prior to that for attempts to supply in Wales. I got locked up by bare armed police. One of them hit me in my head with a rifle. I've got knocked out, I've woke up, I don't even know my name. That was the truth of the situation. So I couldn't remember nothing about no attempted murder anyway. So just to clear that up, there was never no attempt on my life.
What do you think about the whole gang thing there?
The gang thing now, obviously, like, I'm grown in that now, innit? So I've seen the effects, I've seen the after effects, I've seen what it causes on all angles. So what I think about it now is basically, I can't say it's a joke because it's people's lives and people are really dedicated to this stuff, but as an elder looking in, I can say really it's not the way forward. To be fair, the gang scene, you get me? It's a culture thing, innit? So it's more of a fashion thing now than basically. It's hard to explain, but now it's all a joke, really. Everyone is just the gangbangers.
Shoot star, it's them JC Johnny boys, GSA, TSA, mob squad raiders, slash niggas in the place, Brumtown bad boys, slapping in the broad day, man it's straight dog shit, don't get in our way. JC Johnny boys, GSA, TSA, mob squad raiders, slash niggas in the place, Brumtown bad boys, slapping in the broad day, man it's straight.
It's different to like my day when I come up then in the gang thing, car. In my day, you couldn't just come out one day and say you're a gangster then, you get me? You have to do something. Now to be a gangster nowadays, you got to jump on Twitter, make a bad boy tweet about, yeah, I'll shoot your mum in the face, I'll do this. And then what, you're getting a label, jumping on Facebook. That's how the gangster thing is now, and I'm not from that school. You understand it? So I don't play it, and the thing is, because on the back of all this stuff does happen, you get me, stuff will happen to you for stuff what you write on Twitter, what you write on Facebook. The next black boy is not your enemy. That's what I say to them. You understand what I'm saying? Like, there's enemies out there like that. That guy over there, because he's from that postcode, he's not your enemy.
Ironically, one of Sharif's bitterest rivals, Johnson crew member Zimbo Moore, shares the same views these days, but is under no illusion about the impact of a few kind words. He knows that the war is still being fought, and unemployed youths, impressed by the prestige bestowed upon gang members, are queuing to join their ranks.
I had a good childhood. It was a single-parent house, mum, 4 sons. I'm trying to say, but we lived happily. We ate together as a family for a while. As we got older, as we started to get to the teens and that's when we started to do our own little thing then. Started to break away, hang with the lads. You know, probably like age of 11, 12, 13. That's when we started to get into mischief. Started to get into criminal activities. I was taught that, innit, by friends that are a bit older than me, through the images that I'm seeing of myself or people like me on TV, in music, everywhere. You know what I'm trying to say? So obviously I took on that image for myself and got into that that way of life. I used to always get older people stopping me in the street and saying, "What are you doing?" Because a lot of young people follow you. So why are you leading them the wrong way? And I was just thinking, I ain't no role model. I'm just doing me. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm just living how I'm living. But in reality, you're a role model, whether it's just to your little brothers and sisters or your little cousins or the whole half of the community. You know what I'm trying to say? So I was pretty known through shit that was going on in the streets and through music. I used to rap about it. I used to make songs about it, do shit and make songs about it.
Talking, but I just keep walking. She just begs, can't ignore the bitch calling. All my life I've been stalking destruction. Till my eyes open up to the corruption. Now I ain't fucking with these busters. Is this a war of the minds? I'm a right to free my brothers. So let's go back to the beginning of time, where the Jews had the same skin color as mine, and the world was...
You get known for it. You get respect, you get ratings, and people will follow you. It's a lot of power, but you don't know that. You don't know the power that you're holding. You know what I'm trying to say? Because what you're saying, in terms of the music that I was putting out, people are following. It's like you're teaching people how to live.
Teaching people how to die may be nearer the truth. The origins of these gangs go back to the 1980s, when racial tension resulted in rioting. Right-wing groups began targeting immigrants, and this led to young black men banding together for self-protection. Meeting up in a fast food restaurant in the Lozells district, the Johnson crew, as they came to be known, carried out vigilante patrols to protect their community. As they grew in strength, the threat from the far right began to recede. Some of the Johnson crew decided to move into crime as a way of making a living. Disagreements over the proceeds of their crimes led to some members leaving to set up a rival group. Basing themselves in a cafe, and hence the name, the Burger Bar Boys were bitter rivals to the Johnson crew from day one. As crack cocaine swept through the city and money poured into the gang's coffers, the rivalry escalated. So too did the attitudes towards acts of extreme violence.
This is how it spreads like a virus, this whole mentality and this whole way of living and this whole way of thinking. You know what I'm trying to say? Because at first, it started with a small group, just Afro-Caribbean lads. Now, it's everywhere. Even with in the 80s with the white lads that were gangsters, it was a totally different kind of gangster. There was probably more loyalty then. There was more. It was like a coats of arms and all that shit. You know what I'm trying to say? Like it was different. Where it's not even organised. People think it's organised. Like the people, like police would say it's organised crime. Bollocks. You know what I'm trying to say? It ain't organised. Everyone's just. It could be organised to an extent, but it's not organised. Everyone's just living like wild animals. This is how we live. If you want people to respect you, you got to do this. You got to do that. You know what I'm trying to say? You got to do bad shit, and then people will respect you. So as a kid, if I'm 6 years old, I got a little brother that's 13, and all he knows, my little brother, all he knows is that to get people to respect you and to get people to like you and to feel wanted, you got to do bad shit. You know what I'm trying to say? So that's what he's doing. This is the 6-year-old. This is what I'm learning now. This is what I'm learning you have to be. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. Oh, to go jail, when people go jail, so every time someone goes jail, they come out and they got stories to tell. This is when we were 13, 14, 15, 16. People go jail, come out, there's stories to tell. The story's always funny. So jail seems fun. You know what I'm trying to say? It's nothing to go jail. These are the things that we're learning. So we're learning these things and we're growing up. And we're taking on that whole, we're being programmed that way. Any community you go into, it's class now. It's not race or culture no more, it's class. There's a class of young people that think that this is the way to live. I believe it's changing now, but for a long time, this is how we grew up.
When you talk about reality, what sort of reality checks did you get and how did they affect you? You know, like if you're in your 20s and your mate gets murdered.
See, reality checks, they come in abundance. Friends dying, just whatever, people getting hurt, doors getting, some shit's always happening. There's been times where there's been shootouts and people have been standing up in the same place where the shootout was 10 minutes after the shootout. A lot of the time, it's not really a reality check because it's normal.
On the 6th of December 2002, 24-year-old Johan Martin was shot dead as he sat in his car near the West Bromwich Albion football ground. Johan was a key member of the Burger Bar Boys. His brother Nathan believed that the Johnson crew was behind the killing and so began plotting his revenge. He soon recruited fellow gang members Michael Gregory, Marcus Ellis and Rodrigo Sims. All the gang needed now was an opportunity.
There was a party being held at one of these properties above a hairdresser's. During the evening, revellers from the party came along this balcony and down these stairs and congregated here. They just come out for some fresh air and just to have a chat, get away from the noise. Unbeknown to them, down there on the left-hand side, there was a guy called Rodrigo Sonny Sims. He had noticed that members of the Johnson crew were attending the party and he'd rang Nathan Martin to tell them. Martin and 3 other members of his gang armed themselves with a Mac-10 submachine gun, a handgun and various other weapons and came up this road in a stolen red Mondeo. And as they passed a group of girls, they opened fire. The recoil from the gun meant they lost their aim and basically they sprayed this entire area with bullets. 4 of the revellers were hit. 2 of them, Letitia Shakespeare and Charlene Ellis, fell to the floor fatally wounded. The people from the party came down the stairs to give them what assistance they could, but unfortunately, shortly afterwards, both of them died.
Marcus Ellis, Michael Gregory and Nathan Martin were all convicted of murder and sentenced to a minimum of 35 years imprisonment. Rodrigo Sims was ordered to serve at least 27 years. The lengthy prison sentences did little to deter other young men. In fact, the huge publicity the case generated attracted more recruits for both gangs. This resulted in a heavy police presence in the areas where the Johnsons and Burgers operated. Determined to maintain their criminal lifestyle, both gangs attempted to take over the drugs trade in neighbouring towns and cities such as Coventry, Walsall and Wolverhampton. The latter is an extremely violent city that has plenty of previous when it comes to gangs. Rob Holloway and his door security firm became a target of much of that violence.
In 2003, when I started taking on a lot of clubs, which coincided with the shootings of Shakespeare and Ellis in Birmingham, and also that drove the Burger Boys and that this way because they had a lot of heat on them over in Birmingham, but also they was competing for the crack market because Wolverhampton at the time was saturated with crack addicts. And that's when we started having problems with local gangs and with the Burger Boys and different people. A lot of violence. And we used to get them down Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. Warfare, North Street in Wolverhampton, warfare every night. We had loads of incidents. One time the Burger Boys come down and there's another local gang and they attacked the doorman. And then I had to come down and different things. And a guy who's dead now come after me with an axe, which I took off. He ended up with the axe in his head. The local gangs from Heathtown and Park Village and whatever, they don't like the Birmingham boys infringing on their territory, so to speak. So we'd have flare-ups with them. We've had shootings in the street. There's one incident where I dragged a guy out of a car and I was fighting and whatever. And a gun went off. Somebody tried to shoot me, and it hit the fucking car, and the window went, and there's about 60 people in the street. It was running everywhere. And as I say, this was every night. But the Burger Boys were all right with us. They used to come down, and we had an arrangement. I had an arrangement with all the gangs, to be fair, and they never brought guns into my place. It sounds mad, but it's true. And we used to have bin bags with different gangs coming, and my doorman would put their gun in a fucking different bag, and they'd enjoy the night, and then when they left, they'd all have the guns back and start shooting each other and kicking off. It was mad, it was crazy.
In another club called First Base, 2 of Holloway's firm were involved in a terrifying brawl with a gang led by Marlon Jones, which resulted in a cloakroom attendant being kneecapped, a pit bull terrier being shot dead, and several others suffering gunshot and stab wounds.
Well, the night was intense from the beginning anyway. You know, people was just like pushing in, trying to get in. You know, I mean, it was a big night, a big night. And all of a sudden it just went pear-shaped. Bang. Doors kicked off, gangs running in, everybody running up and down the stairs trying to get out. We had 2 dogs on the main entrance. Apparently one of the dogs did get shot. You know, it was just a mad night.
It was a moody night initially at the beginning. It was proper moody. I think something was said upstairs where one of the gang members got nearly sort of done something to one of our doormen, didn't they, or something?
Yeah.
I mean, chucked him over the balcony or something like that. So there was a bit of retribution there, what was going to happen, you know, I mean, at the end of the night. And then at the end of the night, it just went mad. Choppers, machetes, guns, everything. It was just mad. I got bottled with a champagne bottle. I got 50 stitches and 7 nerves. At the time I was a bit of a boxer, so it kind of fucked my career sort of thing, but just one of them ones really.
Just the trauma of it, you know, it was just intense. It was just intense. I mean, I was downstairs at the main entrance where the shots was fired. People was just like, it was just mayhem. After we all got upstairs, saw my friend there, sitting there with his face open. I was standing initially right by the cloakroom. I heard a bullet just zoom past my ears and it lodged into the door. One of my friends got shot in his leg.
So I started noticing little gangs, little kids who used to steam shops or sell a bit of weed or fucking rob drug dealers or different things. Through selling crack and making a lot of money, tens of thousands of pounds a week, they could buy hardware and guns and different things, and that's when all respect for the old morals and the old school went out the fucking window, to be honest. And even now, you've got 16-year-old kids who live with their mum, and they've got 20 grand under the bed and a shooter, you know what I mean? So it didn't matter who you was then, Irish, black, Asian, the mafia. They don't give a fuck, to be honest. So drugs really wrecked, you know, all the morals to do with the underworld and different things.
The drug-fueled tensions that engulfed the region at that time resulted in widespread disorder. Birmingham's huge Irish community was not left unscathed, but the threat to them came from within. Big Joe Eagan, a former Irish heavyweight boxing champion and sparring partner of Iron Mike Tyson, ran a popular pub in the city. Described by Tyson as the toughest white man on the planet, Eagan was, in his prime, a fighting machine. Despite his physical presence and fighting capabilities, Eagan is regarded by all those that know him as the personification of good manners. There are those, of course, who take such a trait as a sign of weakness.
Well, raised in Dublin, I'm the eldest of 7 children. My daddy came to work in England when we were children. I got bullied in the UK because I had the Irish accent. And when I picked up the English accent, when I went home to Dublin, I got bullied in Dublin. When I went home to Ireland to eventually settle and live in Ireland, because we were coming backwards and forwards, I started boxing. First and foremost, I suppose, to learn to protect myself. And boxing doesn't just give you self-respect, it gives you respect for another person. I boxed for Ireland on a number of occasions. I boxed all over the world. I shared the ring with a lot of world champions. Every boxer that climbs into the ring dreams about becoming a champion of the world. I wasn't good enough to become a champion of the world, but it was a great honour to share the ring with champions of the world. I went over to America. I boxed in America when I was 17. Anyway, I stayed on. I went to Gleason's gym. I sparred a couple of professional heavyweights in Gleason's gym, gave a good account of myself. There was 2 professional trainers in the gym, Bob Jackson and Al Gavin, and they'd actually bought a gym off Cus D'Amato. So they knew Cus, and they knew the young heavyweight that Cus was training called Mike Tyson. I'd never heard of Mike. I'd come over from Ireland. Mike was knocking men out as a boy, but I didn't know this. Stupid Paddy came over from Ireland, didn't know who Mike was. I just heard that there was this teenager, same age as myself, well actually 6 months younger than me, who needed a sparring partner. And I'd been so used to fighting older men. When I got the opportunity to go and spar with a younger man than me, I dived on the opportunity. I ended up staying on with Mike for nearly 2 years, sparring Tyson. And I'm very proud to say that he never put me down in them nearly 2 years. I fought Lennox Lewis, had a great fight with Lennox as well. But boxing, there's a big psychological warfare in boxing. And I really believed, because Tyson couldn't put me down, that Lennox couldn't put me down. And I stayed on my feet with Lennox Lewis, so I'm very proud to say that I stayed on my feet with two of the best punchers of my era. But when my boxing career finished first time round, I emigrated. I came back over to the UK and I settled in Birmingham. I'd boxed in Birmingham as an amateur on 3 occasions: the Ladywood Boxing Club, the Birmingham City Boxing Club, and the Whalley Boxing Club. The Whalley Boxing Club, they hosted the show in the Irish Centre in Digbeth. And when I came back to Birmingham, I ended up managing the Dubliner pub in Digbeth for Paddy Finn. He said, Joe, my career was cut short because of a spine. He had a problem with his spine. And he said, I went into the pub trade, and he said, your career's cut short because of a car crash. He said, come on over and work for me. And I did. I came over and I settled in Birmingham. And been in the UK now this time round, nearly 20 years now. I came over in 95, managed the Dubliner pub for 2 years, and then the opportunity came up to take over a pub called the Lyndhurst. And me and my ex-business partner, Thomas McGill, who was a former ex-Irish boxing champion as well, we took over the Lyndhurst pub. When we took over the pub in 97, the Lyndhurst. There was racketeers, bully boys. I'd experienced bully boys most of my life. From a child, like I said, I got bullied in Manchester, and then when I went home to Ireland, I got bullied in Ireland. And I've experienced, nobody likes a bully. Nobody likes a bully, and people think it just happens to children, it happens to adults as well. And in 97, we took over the pub, and then had 7 or 8 months of the pub going really well. And then in July, the 19th of July 98, we had the racketeers demand protection money. I thought this was something you'd see in the movies. I really didn't think this was happening to me and my business partner. And it wasn't an imagination. It wasn't a nightmare. It was actually happening. And being a licensee for a pub, I cooperated with the police. I informed the police of what's going on. I didn't want to be a vigilante. I'm a licensee for a pub. I let the police take care of this. The following week, the 26th of July 1998, the gangs gathered and then they attacked the pub. The police, unfortunately, let me down. The gang were able to get onto the car park of my pub. We had a function going on that day. We had a Holy Communion in our function room. And the pub was frequented by a lot of proper people, ex-boxers, good people. And I was blessed that day that there was people in my pub, because if I'd have been there on my own, they'd have killed me, the gang that attacked. All right, I might have took 1 or 2 of them with me, but what good is that? I was blessed on that day. There was people beside me to be able to make a stance. You know, and the statute law in this country says you're able to make a stance. I made a stance because I'd been let down by the police. I took a gunshot wound for my troubles. I got hit with shotgun pellets. They had guns, hatchets, machetes. It was a very violent day, and it was a tragic day, to tell you the truth. There was a few people, customers and friends from my pub, that were badly wounded, and it was quite horrific.
How many people were there?
37 of them attacked. 37 attacked my pub, and it was quite horrific. You know, I don't claim to be any type of tough guy, but I've had a hard upbringing, you know, and I've grown up tough. And that particular day, you know, they show programs on the television about a band of brothers. There was a band of brothers there that day, and men that stood beside me, and women. There was a couple of women as well. Half an hour before they attacked my pub, I phoned the police. I phoned a sergeant who's a good man, a proper man. And he said, I'm on my way to you, Joe. And as he was on his way to me, he got radioed to a Mickey Mouse alarm call. Mine was a genuine distress call. And unfortunately, he never got to me, and the police never got to me for 55 minutes. There was a 30-minute warning and a 25-minute pitch battle, 55 minutes before the first policeman arrived. And the police station are 400 yards from the pub. And from that day on, in Birmingham, my life sort of spiraled out of control. I got into a bit of trouble afterwards, trying to make ends meet, to tell you the truth, Bernard. The pub was never the same again. It went downhill. I tried my level best to keep it going as best I could. I did, but it wasn't making any money. And eventually, the brewery that we had a pub with, we had a lease with the brewery. They put me out of the pub because they said I wasn't a proper landlord. I wasn't a proper person. Even though it was me, I was the victim. And my life spiraled out of control. My ex-missus, my ex-fiancée, she cleared off with Michael Flatley, the Riverdance guy, was all over the world's news. She deserted, as far as she was concerned, a sinking ship. And that didn't help me at the time. I took very sick as well, and I ended up in prison. I remember being in court and getting found guilty of a crime. And I looked up to the gallery, and my dad was in the gallery. And I watched him. Hold his head in his hands and cry. Excuse me. I feel sick even talking about it.
But whatever you go through, Joe, it makes you hard, doesn't it? You know.
Me getting sent to prison, Bernard, had the same effect as my dad's dad dying.
Of course, yeah.
It made him cry, and I feel sick and ashamed. And when I came out of prison, I didn't know what to do with my life, you know, and I made a comeback into boxing. And it was headlines in the paper, Joe the Boxer was better than saying Joe the Convict or Joe the Ex-Convict. And I still feel sick even talking about that, Bernard, like, you know.
Like Joe, I grew up in the Midlands as part of an Irish family, and we were subjected to the very same prejudice those within the black community endured. I was a teenager at the time of the Birmingham pub bombings, and I can vividly recall the huge swell of anti-Irish feeling that engulfed the city. My father was beaten up at his place of work, and shops refused to serve my mother simply because she had an Irish accent.
Well, I'm Irish, and I'm proud to be Irish. I'm not very proud of some of the Irish history, you know. And like the UK has been kind to a lot of foreign nationals, and it's welcomed the Irish. Already, the Irish have come over and they've worked in the UK. Like I said earlier on in the interview, Ireland's greatest export has always been its people. It was just unfortunate that the troubles in Northern Ireland, that a particular element of the Irish have had a war with the English, and the Birmingham bombings in particular was sad. No, soldiers are different, you know. Ours is not the question why, ours is but to do or die is a soldier's motto. A soldier joins the army and there's conflict. A soldier is expected to go out and fight in a war. Civilians going out on a Friday night to a pub don't expect to be blown up. And it was a sad, tragic day for the Irish as well. It was a tragic day for the world.
I never really understood the conflict in Ireland. My father had told me to hate the English, and so I did. I don't suppose those people who erected signs saying no Irish, no blacks and no dogs fully understood their reasons for hating strangers either. English against Irish, Burger Bar member against Johnson crew member, Catholics against Protestants, villains against the police. All conflicts are pointless, because the only thing we ever learn is that hate breeds hatred, and hatred will destroy us all.